Hi everybody. Today we are going to be having a new lesson. We are going to be working on squares of numbers. So let's get started. The first thing that I have here is the short chain of 3. So I can see that it's 3 taken 3 times. And I can do something with this. I can turn it into a square that has a base of 3 and a height of 3. Now, this is also a square of 3, but it looks a little bit nicer. So it's the exact same thing, but I'm going to swap it out. Now, if I look at this square of 3, I can see that it has a base of 3. So I'm going to label that base 3. It also has a height of 3. So I'm going to label the height 3. And we could count up each one of these and get the answer. There's nothing wrong with that. But we can also use an operation to solve this, and it's multiply, just like we did with area at the beginning of the school year. So we know that I could also say 3 times 3. Now, there's a new way that we can write this when your base and your height are the same and it makes a square. And that is 3 times 3 is the same thing as writing it this way. This way says 3 squared. So if we look at this, this is my base, it's 3. And 3 squared, it doesn't mean 3 times 2. This is what we call an exponent. And that means how many times am I taking the base? I'm taking it 2 times, which is 3 times 3 is 3 squared, is what we call this. And we do actually have a literal square. Well, 3 times 3, or 3 squared, is 9. Let's try it with another number. I'll move these down. And let's try it with the short chain of 4 and see what we get. So here is my my short chain of 4. And we can see that I have 4 sets of 4. And I can turn it into a square. Not a very pretty square, huh? Let's see if this works better. And I can see that this square is a square of 4. It has a base of 4 and a very wiggly height of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to swap it out with this square of 4, which is also 4 by 4. So again, I'm going to label my base. I can see that I have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the bottom, or the base. And I'm taking it 4 times. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. So my height is 4. And this is the same thing as saying 4 times 4. So 4 times 4 is the same thing as saying 4 squared. And we know that 4 squared is 16, because 4 times 4 is 16. Again, 4 taken 2 times, not 4 times 2. 4 times 4 is 16. Let's do another one. I have here the short chain of, you guessed it, 5. So I have 5 sets of 5. And I'll see if I can turn it into a square of 5. There it is. It's 5 sets of 5 and it makes a square. We can see that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And of course, this is also a square of 5. It's the same amount, but it looks a little bit better. So off you go. Now we label 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm taking it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. There's 5 rows of 5, which is the same thing as saying 5 times 5. And we know that we have 5 times 5. I can also rewrite that as 5 squared. And of course, 5 squared is 25. And if I were to count each of these up, it would be 25. And you can do this with any number, as long as you remember that your 5 times 5 is the same thing as 5 squared. 4 times 4, same thing as 4 squared. 3 times 3 is the same thing as 3 squared. So, what is your work with this knowledge? Well, we are going to be drawing, coloring, labeling, and doing all of the math work for all of the squares of numbers between 2 and 10. And once you finish those and you feel really good about it, you can start to do even bigger squares of numbers. So, what I'm going to do is clear the board and show you what this is going to look like on paper. Now, I have here the finished product of some of the work that would be in the classroom. Now, you can see that for each of these I've drawn the square. It's pretty small under here, but you can see that I've done the work underneath of it as well. 2 squared equals 2 times 2, which is 4. So this is what you're going to be doing on your own. It doesn't have to all be on one sheet of paper. You can make a book of them. You can make a scroll of them. It's totally up to you as long as you have this good information here. So I'm going to show you how you're going to do this, the finished product. So the first thing that you're going to need is a sheet of graph paper. You're going to need a pencil and a ruler. Every time you use a ruler, right? We want our lines to be nice and crisp. You're also going to need some colored pencils. So the first thing we're going to do is we'll start off with a square of 2. And so you're just going to do 2, 1, 2. So I can see that my dots have 2 squares on the bottom and 2 squares on the top. Now I get to connect the dots using my ruler so that it's nice and precise. All right, so there's my square of 2. And I'm going to label my base, which is 2, and label my height, which is 2. And then just like I wrote earlier on the little squares of paper, 2 times 2 equals, it's the same thing as saying 2 squared. Well, I know that 2 times 2, or 2 squared, equals 4. And if I look over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, I do have 4 squares. Now the next step is to color it in. Color it in neatly. We want to take a lot of pride in the work that we're doing. There's no point in doing something if we're just going to rush through it and not have something that we can be proud of. And that is how you would do it. I'll show you one more. I'll show you how to do 3 squared, and then on your own job will be to do this. So I start off with my dot, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And my last one. And I will make a nice solid line. And there is my 3 square, my square of 3. I'll label the base and my height just like area. And 3 times 3 is the same thing as 3 squared. There's my little exponent. And 3 times 3, or 3 squared, is 9. And again, you can always count up your squares and make sure that you've got the right number. All right, and I'll color it in. You can make a square out of any number that you like. Maybe you want to try a 17 square. Maybe you'd like to try a 32 square. Once you've done 2 through 10, you should extend it and make nice big ones. So this is squares of numbers, and we will meet to have a lesson about this as well. But until then, have a great time.